Alright, listen, I know I'm late. Please don't stab me, but, you know, I like the Absolute books, and I like Green Arrow and Black Canary, so what would an Absolute Green Arrow and Black Canary look like? The Absolute books are, at their core, about taking away something in the distant past of these characters that led them to becoming a hero in the way they did. For Wonder Woman, it's growing up on Themyscira. For Superman, it's his parents being scientists on Krypton. So what can we change in Green Arrow and Black Canary's lives that have this kind of effect? Let's start with Green Arrow. The obvious answer to this question is to change the island. Call it Starfish Island, call it Lian Yu, it doesn't really matter. There's a strong argument to be made that this is the most important moment in Oliver's personal history. In fact, I'd say it's fairly unambiguous, but that's not what the Absolute line is about. Superman still comes to Earth, Batman still leaves Gotham to train, Wonder Woman still goes to Man's World, so this isn't really what I want to go for. We have to go further back, to the death of his parents. At a very young age, Green Arrow's parents were mauled to death by lions. For this pitch, that never happened. Oliver grows up with both his parents, and that's what changes him. He doesn't end up doing the whole adrenaline junkie superhero bit because he doesn't have the trauma that leads him to do that in the first place. He does still become a hero before he's ready, not because he's looking for thrills, but because he's looking for justice. Not real justice, but justice in this sort of vaguely conservative sense that he identifies with at this point through his upbringing and environment. As for Black Canary, the obvious answer would be to take away her relationship with her mother and the rest of the JSA. This is a big part of what makes the character tick, so I can absolutely understand the impulse, but it's been done before. I had a whole rant about this in the Birds of Prey video, but the New 52 tried its best to erase the JSA's existence. That had a lot of effect, especially on Dinah. So what else can we do? Another important element of Dinah's character and upbringing is her mother's flower shop. It's a thematic representation of her character and values. With love and care, a simple and seemingly insignificant thing can grow into something beautiful. This, at least to my understanding, lays at the foundation of Dinah's character, so we take that away. That's our starting point. Oliver is a hero motivated by some abstract idea of what good is, but no real drive to do good, as given shape by circumstances as son of a billionaire. Dinah, on the other hand, is a little more rough around the edges. She still has a strong moral compass, but she's not a hero yet. With that, let's get into the story. A man leaves his apartment, walking through the terribly kept hallway. On the street outside, he navigates the unkept sidewalk and occasional piles of trash. On the other side of the street, an older man in a suit walks confidently, a smug grin on his face and a briefcase in his hands. He carries a cane. He doesn't need it. It's just his symbol of power. This is Jubal Slade. He's attacked by someone. The attacker is an everyday person, just someone sick of being screwed over by Jubal Slade and his ilk. He owns almost the entire block, and he's been jacking up the rent and not maintaining the living conditions. Slade fights back, hitting the young man across the face with his cane. Learn to respect your elders. You might make something of your life yet. He gets hit in the face. The man we followed at the start picks up a can and throws it at the rich guy. He crosses the street. His heating hasn't been fixed. It's been 3.5 weeks since he complained. He's given his blanket to his daughter. At least she can stay warm-ish. The first attacker gets a few good licks in, but the rich man's cane gives him the upper hand. Now at 2 versus 1, they get him on the ground. At that moment, an arrow flies through the air. It's blunt, and it hits the first attacker in the shoulder. The arrow charges in and fires another projectile at the other attacker. He asks Slade if he's alright. Yes, I am. I will be. Thanks to you. The attackers start to run away. The arrow fires a bolo arrow at one of them, tangling their legs. He chases after the other one. The man runs into an alleyway. All he wanted was for his daughter to be warm. All he wanted was justice. He's knocked to the floor. The arrow slams handcuffs on him. Sorry, buddy. You're not getting away from justice. We establish Oliver's personal life at his home. His parents are both still alive, though his mother is sick. Robert Queen's watching the news in the living room when Oliver walks in. It's an interview at a college. A girl is talking about how her friend, Sienna Waters, has disappeared. They talk about it for a bit. Robert emphasizes that there's always something you can do. The news switches to covering the Arrow's exploits from earlier in the day, talking about how he saved Jubal Slade from 2 attackers. His dad makes a comment indicating that he cautiously supports it. He's not a fan, but at least it's action. They're about to discuss further, but Robert is called away by his business partner. The Arrow walks into the campus dorms. People stare at him, talking about him as he walks by or laughing. He walks up to a door and knocks. The girl from the TV opens the door. It doesn't take long for her to slam it in his face. Some dumbass in a Robin Hood costume? Fuck out of here. What's he gonna do? At night, the same girl from the news broadcast is walking through a park on the way back to the dorms. She's jittery, scared. A silhouette follows her. It gets closer and closer. A man in a mask steps out from behind a tree, grabbing her by the arm. The man behind her pulls out a needle. He gets punched in the face. The girl turns around and sees that both of the men were knocked unconscious. Cut to the outside of a warehouse at the docks. A van pulls up and 3 people in face masks carry a college-aged girl into the building, protected by a few armed guards. One of them asks where the others are. They don't know, but heard that they were going after the TV girl. The guard storms after them as they carry their victim in. We follow the kidnapper as they put the girl in a container. Meanwhile, the guard and someone else are having a conversation in an office, angrily. One of the kidnappers sees something moving around in the warehouse. He goes into the shadows to check it out and gets thrown back into the open, unconscious. Additional guards flock to the area. Someone sneaks out of the office. Some of the guards move into the shadows. They come back the same as the other guy. The remaining men point their guns into the darkness, and an arrow flies through their weapons from the side. The arrow arrives on the scene. They take out a secondary weapon and start shooting at him, turning away from the shadows. He quickly ducks to the side. The guards are swiftly taken out by the heroes that initially attacked them, Black Canary and Wildcat. They move to run after the escapee, but the arrow blocks the way, interrogating them about who they are. They try to ignore him, but he refuses to move. Wildcat punches him in the gut and they run away. The arrow takes a moment to recover before chasing after them. Their guy gets away, and so do they. We get a quick monologue from Oliver's perspective, lamenting his role in the situation. He doesn't blame himself for the guy getting away. He's just trying to piece together who would meddle in his heroic affairs. He patrols a little longer, now alerted to a small-time robbery. He shoots arrows at the thief, pinning the sleeve of his hoodie to a wall. Black Canary and Wildcat pull the arrow out and block the arrow in. He tries to argue that they just let a criminal go, but Black Canary steps in. That was just a kid, no more than 15. She took his backpack with the stolen goods inside. They talk, and we find out that they're there to find out what happened to Black Canary, Dinah Drake's daughter. She's gone missing. We move to a ship in the Pacific Ocean. One of the containers falls off, stranding on an island, opened by the impact. A woman with short black hair opens her eyes. Back in Star City, the kid that got away from the arrow, Black Canary, and Wildcat is walking down an alleyway. He stops to catch his breath, still freaked out by what just happened to him. The silhouette of a big man appears over him. He turns around to look at the man, and he dies. Dinah Lance leaves the container, stepping onto the warm beach. We spend time with her as she explores the island. We follow her as she improvises some survival skills, staying on the island for about a week before finding out there's other people there. Upon further investigation, Dinah discovers that the island is being used as an opium plantation. Throughout this issue, we follow Dinah as she basically speedruns the events of Green Arrow Year 1. She manages to take down the slavers, but only with the help of the people already on the island, being oppressed by the organization. After they fight their way through, Dinah comes face to face with the original manager of the plantation, China White. She's on the phone to her boss, who tells her to get out of there. She rushes off the island on a boat, but doesn't notice the stowaways. Dinah and the group she fought with sit in the boat, fearing for their lives. Dinah decides to pick up a symbol of freedom and heroism, honoring her mother and becoming the Black Canary. She inspires the group as they find China White and take her down, learning about her canary cry in the process. They arrive at their intended destination, Star City. On the other side of town, the man from the opening of our first issue has just been exonerated. He walks home, asking himself how he got out. His defense was funded by someone, but he has no idea who. As he walks home, he's lured into an alleyway. He goes in there and looks around to see a man in yellow and orange towering over him. Catman. With a swipe of his claws, he kills the man. The Arrow, Black Canary, and Wildcat are still talking. To be more precise, they're arguing. Oliver just doesn't really get it. Black Canary and Wildcat are experienced and know how to deal with this type of crime. Oliver's more of a hobbyist. As they talk, a slew of people floods the street, coming from the docks. The 3 start running. Dinah steps off of the ship after making sure everyone's off the boat. Her mother, uncle, and some guy in a Robin Hood costume come running up. We do the obligatory reuniting scene / introduction scene. Establish that Oliver is attracted to Dinah, but given where he's at in his arc, it's more she looks good than anything else. We can have Wildcat do the whole stay away from her or I'll chase you around with a shotgun bit, which, to be fair, is a very valid reaction at this point. All that type of stuff. Wildcat and the old Black Canary pick up China White and take her to the police, while the new Black Canary and the Arrow talk. Up to this point, the Arrow's not really been a great protagonist. He's kind of a dick. That's partly because that's the point, and that's partly because I can't go into a ton of detail for this type of video because of the time restraints, but this is where we get a taste of what is supposed to be spread throughout, including in the issues we've already had. Dinah and Oliver sit on a rooftop, kind of awkwardly because they don't really know each other. Oliver would usually be the type of guy to make himself comfortable, regardless of whether he knew the person or not. But given what Dinah's just been through, he thought it best to keep quiet. Dinah's the one to start talking. She tells him that she can't stop. That's what her mom and Ted want, for her to come home and be safe. but she can't bring herself to it. She's supposed to be working her way through her last year of college, but someone stopped that. Someone tried to take her, and she still doesn't know who, but she has to know. She has to do something about it. Oliver can understand that. Rebelling against your parents is one thing. He's been doing that for years and years, but doing something, really, actually doing something, is what he's been after all his life. But he hasn't found it yet. He thought he had it with the arrow, but he's not even scratching the surface. Running around shooting at petty criminals doesn't really scratch that itch. It's a band-aid over a larger problem. Dinah proposes that they work together to find out what's been going on, help each other. They go their separate ways. After they leave, someone starts tagging a wall of the building they were on, making an extensive artwork. When they're done, they turn around, only to find Catman there, who attacks them, splashing the still drying artwork with red. Dinah gets back to her dorm room. Her roommate was Sienna Waters, another kidnapping victim. She has no idea where she is. They were close. Maybe not as close as they should have been, but, well, that doesn't matter now. She doesn't really have many people around her. There's always her mother and Ted, but there's an expectation for her to stop being Black Canary there, and she can never stop. When Oliver gets home, his father and Barney Hackett are having a heated discussion. They're trying to put it off until their third gets there, unsuccessfully. He says hello. Hackett is a close family friend after all. Since they seem busy, he goes to talk to his mother. He's still a little self-obsessed at this point, but he recognizes that and is trying to do better. He talks to his mother about wanting to do something with his life, and not being sure what. She's supportive, if not a little confused by his wording and sudden change in attitude. The next day at the SCPD, we watch as China White is released from custody. She thanks the guard smugly and walks out of her cell and out of the building. Black Canary and the Arrow are sat on the roof opposite the precinct and spectate through binoculars. They covertly follow her over the buildings until she turns into an alleyway. In said alley, she finds herself face to face with Catman. He notes that he never much liked her anyway, and proceeds to swipe at her. She puts up a fight, hitting most of her hits and dodging most of his. The disadvantage of not having weapons is what ultimately gets her. Catman slashes her across the leg and the chest. Right as he's about to land the killing blow, he's kicked across the face by Black Canary. Oliver and Dinah take on Catman together. He's clearly more capable, but between Dinah's training and Oliver's archery skills, they're holding their own. During the fight, China White tries to slip away. Dinah is too preoccupied with Catman to notice, but Oliver does. He decides to chase her instead, as Dinah has the upper hand against Catman at this point. He corners her easily, given her injuries, and starts asking questions. She reveals that she'd struck a deal to roll over on her boss to get a more lenient sentence. He asks her who her boss is. It's Barney Hackett. With the Arrow taken aback, she manages to slip away. He has to help Dinah anyway. When he gets back, she's injured. A broken arm. Catman left. She curses him for leaving her. He doesn't even care to defend himself at this point. He doesn't tell her about Hackett. He just lets her yell at him for a while and takes her to her mother and Ted. Oliver sits at the back of the room while Dinah, and Ted discuss what happened previously. They're mad at Dinah for going against their judgment, but ultimately understand that feeling of having to help. After all, that's precisely what got them here in the first place. Oliver doesn't really hear any of the conversation. He's stuck in his own head. Hackett is his father's partner, a friend. Basically his uncle. It's very possible that China White is lying. The word of a drug and human trafficker is hardly trustworthy, but why would she lie? Does he tell them? And what does he tell them? He'd have to reveal his identity to make them understand. He's stuck. Dinah says his name. He snaps out of it. She asks the same question again. How did she get away? Did she say anything? No, she didn't. They decide to team up in pairs. The Black Canaries will go after China White, and Wildcat and the Arrow take Catman. Dinah goes into a room down the hall to sleep. Oliver sits on the railing of the fire escape, staring out into the city. Ted joins him. They talk for a while. Oliver's clearly not alright. Ted assumes it's just China White and Catman getting away. He asks him why he came here in the first place. Could have just dropped her off and been done with it. He gives a shaky answer. He doesn't really know why. In truth, it's because he knows what he has to do and just needs someone to tell him to do it. Someone he knows to be good. But he doesn't say all that. He doesn't even say anything about Hackett. He just kinda shakes it off. It just felt right. The usual answer. Oliver walks through his house on high alert. He sees his dad watching the news in the living room again and tries to sneak by, but is called in. His father asks him where he's been. He hasn't properly spoken to him in a while. The conversation is tense. Oliver is scared. He's unsure if he can trust his own father. He does his best to keep the conversation short, to run away. When he finally does, he stops to catch his breath in the hallway. He goes to talk to his mother. She's weak, can't speak that well. He asks her if she's alright. She feels herself getting worse, but she's confident she'll be fine. Oliver, on the other hand, is unsure of his own future. He's shaky about it. He doesn't want to tell her everything, doesn't want to worry her or risk her being in on it. It's that realization that brings a tear to his eye. He considers going to bed, but he doesn't. The arrow runs across the rooftops of Star City, clearing his head. He runs and runs until he reaches the Queen Industries building. He looks up at it. He knocks and fires an arrow into the logo. The projectile sticks out of the Q of Queen. He goes back to the apartment. He looks in from a rooftop for a while. The balcony door opens. He comes in. Dinah Drake and Ted are still sitting at the table with a glass of wine. I'm sorry for the intrusion. I need to talk to you. I know who's responsible. For Dinah, for Sienna, all those other girls, the island, the whole thing. Their names are Thomas Blake, Barney Hackett, and Robert Queen. The 3 richest, most powerful men in the city. I don't know why. I don't know for sure how, but it's them. My name is Oliver Queen, and my father is a human trafficker, a slaver, a drug kingpin, a murderer. And I don't know what to do about it. I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe I was part of this somehow. Maybe I was responsible. Regardless, I know you can fix this. Dinah Lance wakes up early in the morning. Today is extremely important. She hates that she had to rest in the first place. She could have caught China White by now. She's sore all over. Her arm's still fucked. As she gets out of bed and gets dressed, she goes over her plans in her head. When she opens the door to her room and steps out, she sees the arrow sitting on the couch. Ted's in the kitchen making her breakfast. She thanks him and asks him about the vigilante in the living room. He tells her they're going out early to catch a kitty. He's not the best liar. After showering, her mother gets back from the shops. She puts a paper bag full of groceries on the table. Seeing that Dinah is awake, she rushes to her bedroom to fetch a blonde wig. She tells Dinah that she can do the whole crime fighter bit as long as she's at least a little bit disguised. They change into their costumes and go out. The Black Canaries are looking for China White. They run across the rooftops to the last place they saw China White, in the alleyway where Catman attacked. When they get there, Dinah starts asking questions about the arrow. Why was he there? They didn't like him before, what changed? Something's not adding up. Her mother doesn't answer any of her questions. They find a little clue and start heading in the direction they think White went in. They lose the trail eventually, but hear 2 cops talking in the distance. They go to check it out and find the subject of their manhunt dead. Claw marks in her back and on her legs. That's it. That's her quest for justice and maybe vengeance come to an end. And there's nothing she can do about it. Ted leads Oliver, now in civilian clothes, into a gym. He shows him around. Ted tells Oliver about himself. He always wanted to be an athlete, a boxer, of course. That was his goal in life, become world champion of boxing. So he trained, day in and day out. Then one day, he got hit by a car. Stupid accident, really. He wasn't looking where he was going, nor was the driver. The type of thing that happens 100 times a day and no one looks up. Messed up his leg pretty bad though. Made training nearly impossible. It took him a while, but he got back to it. He never got that world championship title he dreamed of. Now he finds out none of that matters. He got married, divorced, lost any real chance at a family of his own, as people love to say. But it doesn't matter. He chose to do the best with what he had. He trained his goddaughter, Dinah. Made sure no creep ever stood a chance against her in a fair fight. And look at how that turned out. Fought her way off an island of the worst people on the planet. Moral of the story, he was screwed over. But he managed to make a life of himself, where he can be happy. Turn the bad that happened to him into good for others. That's what it's really about. Everyone has the capacity to do that. Dinah did the same. Had a wonderful little flower shop. Not much, but enough to get by. To be happy. Then some shootout with the cops happened. It was Gotham, basically it came with the territory, but her shop was completely messed up. She didn't have the money to fix it, so she had to let go. That was her dream. Oh, and Dinah, the little one, she loved it. She'd help out there, even though she was way too young. Water the flowers, watch them grow from inconspicuous little seedlings into the most beautiful flowers. But she had to let go too. So they moved across the country. Living conditions were better here, cost of living too. Seemed like the natural choice. Little Dinah didn't take it all that well, but she got through. She teaches now. Drake, not Lance, obviously. She teaches at a middle school not far from here. It's got its challenges, but when it works, it really works for her, you know? A dad that's maybe the worst person you've ever known, but you only found out just now, that's just horrible. No way of dancing around that one. But you have something now, something valuable. Not the money. Well, The money, yeah, that helps. But that's not the core of it. You have perspective and the power to make that perspective stick. A bow and arrow won't get you far if you want to make an actual change. It starts up there where you live. What that looks like practically, I have no clue. That's not my field. But you're learning what it means to live. Not everyone gets that chance. We start this issue back at the apartment, right after Oliver's confession. Dinah and Ted are at a loss. They want to support him, help him, maybe punch him? It takes them both a while to snap back to reality. When they do, their first thought is to tell Dinah. Oliver tells them not to. He can't handle her knowing. Not right now. He doesn't really know what he's going to do. About his father, but also about his own life. Maybe this was a mistake. He didn't really think about it very much. Dinah tells him to stay the night. He can sleep on the couch. Going home isn't really an option. Cut to the present. Dinah Lance is in the apartment, wrapping her head around the whole China White thing. She feels completely powerless. Green Arrow steps out in front of her, asking her if she's ready. Ready for what? They're gonna break into Queen Industries. Hackett is ranting at Robert Queen about Thomas Blake. He's never at the meetings, he's obsessed with that other identity. He doesn't have his head in the game. The building goes into lockdown mode. Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Wildcat crash through the floor-to-ceiling windows on the other side of the building. They fight off all the guards, making sure to be as gentle as possible, while making their way to Queen and Hackett. When they get there, we get an insight into both Oliver and Dinah's thought process. They burst through the doors into Robert's office, where he and Barney are. They run in different directions. Dinah runs after Hackett, followed by her mother. Oliver runs after his father, followed by Wildcat. Dinah confronts Hackett. It's not so much a fight as it is a way for her to vent her frustrations. She catches up to him and beats the shit out of him, punishing him for what he's done to her, her friend, and all his other victims. When her mother reaches the room, she reluctantly stops beating him up. She doesn't have to say anything. She's just there, and it helps Dinah understand that hurting him, or even killing him, won't bring back the people that he hurt. Oliver chases after Robert Queen. They run for a while, turning into various hallways, offices, and boardrooms, losing Wildcat. Eventually, Robert takes a wrong turn into a dead end. Oliver knocks an arrow. Robert doesn't flinch. What's he gonna do? Kill his own father? This is no time for games. He tells him to drop the bow and get out of his way. Oliver doesn't know what to do. He just stands there and let his father push him aside as he walks by, toward the staircase around the corner. Before he gets there, the door is knocked off its hinges as Catman steps out. He rampages through the building, chasing Robert at first. Wildcat finds him first, followed by the arrow. They fend him off for a while, letting Robert get away. He eventually throws them off and starts running in the opposite direction, barging through the door into where the Black Canaries were standing, talking about what to do with Hackett. Can they just arrest him? Won't he just pay his way out? Catman has a different solution. He swipes both the Canaries' legs out from under them and snaps Hackett's neck. He runs back out, trying to find Robert. The four of them reunite to find and fight Catman. He has Robert in his grasp before being kicked in the back of the head by Dinah Drake. He beats all four of them repeatedly. After knocking out Dinah Drake and Wildcat, he grabs Robert again. Dinah uses her canary cry, shattering all the windows and temporarily stunning Catman, who throws Robert down on the ground, over the edge of the window. Oliver shoots a blunt arrow at his head. He staggers. Dinah kicks him, knocking him out. Dinah almost collapses on the spot, still not recovered from the night before. His father tells him to pull him up, that he's ruined everything. He was doing this for Oliver's mother. He had no choice. He says that Oliver just killed his own mother, and then he falls. Back at the apartment, we hear from the news that Catman has been identified as Thomas Blake and is currently in jail awaiting trial. Prosecutor Kate Spencer promises to have him locked away for life. Dinah sits at the table with Ted. Her mother appears from the bedroom. She gives her a necklace. It's a bird. She wore it under her costume whenever she was Black Canary, so this is her way of passing the torch. Oliver comes home and finds his mother in bed. She's dead. He holds her hand and cries. Dinah and Oliver meet on a rooftop in front of Queen Industries. Oliver reveals his identity. He's gonna be busy getting Queen Industries in order, but he's not giving up on being a hero. He hopes she'll stick around. He needs someone with him on this. She shakes his hand and runs off. My name is Oliver Queen. I am Green Arrow.